Hello, Americans. This video uses the hyper-evidential. Our founders asked us to use the hyper-evidential. James Madison communicated to us if we are honest and allow honesty to not leave out how and why already. They had to counter at 13 positions inside of more than 13 colonies. Counter positions to force people to temporarily lie for them. Now, the breaching method had crazy laws that were self valued by countries individually grouped and together, already having had assigned the names of the human species volume science /S to show led by there is an identity of not only is there an identity of relativity, it comes as itself as the value of what really came first. No matter if everyone agrees to pretend to believe other. The value of understanding how a predicate acts with facts delivery system method, and or the difference between that and a criminal insidiousness delivery nature system was effectively put in place, and the difference is used wherein how we are syntactically manifest. See, since you guys are little kids, criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and of negative treatments were maintained simultaneously, where and how the breaching method deciphered what our founders left us to decipher about what they communicated to us. Communications is simultaneously greater than and more finite than, and it is relativity group reality /S, where the identity of relativity is science. One identity of hyper-simultaneous, that one which is why our body has two eyes. All exceptions, exception, nature, and demonstration, the same thing, and other species' bodies. What that is a demonstration of is that hyper simultaneous comes also with a hyper identity of relationship to itself, as all things, distinctly but non-distinctly, and simultaneously but hyper simultaneously. It is why there are 5 words, 5 names for the verb, is why we don't just have one name for the verb. And this is about where and how hyper additional nature is being made as forever nature. It is greater than and more finite than the identity of infinity, while as the identity of infinity. It is all about where and how its identity of volume is identity of relationship to itself. And the value of that became equally only increasing identity of volume as the identity that generated the phenomenon of the only increasing value of 3 distinct identities of 0. This breaching method knew that not only did it assign the names of people A through Z, everywhere the human species body is, before modern religions were even born. They're messengers. Obviously, the sciences had already become criminally foreign influenced. How and why we have individual grouped difference /S/differences. And in other words, as 3 volumes, because the value of that too, the value that comes with that, we're active, and where it is within our control and not to control simultaneously. No. One of the ways science can, honest and actually insane science can discern the identity of relativity is because how it is distinctly an identity as a simultaneous nature, which is one of the things that is constantly, besides being itself, which the species body's volume is, and or our volume. And this is where volume equals value as nature /nature as value. And distinctly, it is value as the opposite sequence nature. And that is not to say value as nature and nature as value in the opposite, because that would be two things. This is three volumes, conjunctive to three identities of zero, three distinct identities of zero. This is where the sciences appear not to share an identity. It comes with the only increasing value of the communications about where and how. That's only exceptions in exception nature and demonstration of the same thing /S, which is additionally where it's about how it is it is additional hyper. That's how it is hyper additionally. The same way we are three volumes bound, finite, grouped, active, and simultaneous as one science: cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall /S, all the cells connected, and with those, the body of gases, the body of water and its elements coming to, showing us five identities of sequence /simultaneous nature. The sequence of the beginnings of the Quran and of the beginnings of the Old Testament, the breaching method measured and maintained before the stewards of the modern religions did, as their messengers knew they would do. It knew that already everyone was a victim /hyper victim and had to defend themselves syntactically. And while defending themselves syntactically, even when correctly, they were blaming other things, others themselves, and or self-valuing other things, others themselves. Blamed where and how the law was needing blame other. So this breaching method effectively employed defenses of laws, identities, and their difference with like maturity, because they have roles too. These countries fighting each other with psychiatry in our faces, tactically delusions raw. See, the intelligence community has been ones with doctors too, fabricating conversations, and in it pretending that people had delusions. How they got away with being tactically delusions raw. In our faces, roles with the employments of natural difference /S, like black pupils, whites of eyes. No, it's no joke where and how this is left out. I mean, in other words, it's not even debatable where and how this is left out from where and how every way. That breaching method employed that to mean other than what it meant. It employed it. It meant that, but it made that blame on other things other than itself, because nature is continually demonstrating that to correlation and reason. So predicate acts with facts, self methods have to do. This showed the interbranch needs for their kids and for their adults, where everyone communicates and communicated about any instance, every instance. In there, this is a method that easily knew how to make everyone, and then it showed the peak identities of law, how to make everyone leave out and make up details. And it's changing everyone's words and putting them in the databases. But then if you try to have mandated law followed, they won't follow it. The only way they get away with it by valuing what they put in databases from the youngest ages. And this is connected to an extent to all bad things. This is connected, inseparable from every crime scene, even if they made them up, like the witch trials. They are about slavery anyway, because that was about the fact, treatment, nature, torture, extortion of our founders. That was about the fact, treatment, nature, slavery of them. That was about them, how sickly, distinctly, specifically make it appear to be debatable. Because everyone's sickly distinctly. but everyone's missing what's sickly non-distinctly with that, which are employments as collusions of identities of sophistication that never had the ability to defend those identities of logic and afford discern what emotions are for and about. Emotions are to discern if people are using the natural system or if they're lying. And we're forced to entertain people. In other words, with manners, if you want to have manners, people speak about, oh, this is way, they want to have, well, this is how we talk nice, these are debatable subjects. These aren't debatable subjects. The suburbs were tactically denatured for the torsion and extortion of our founders that we have not, beginning with George Washington, which is simultaneously comes with James Madison, comes with the employments of slavery, North and South, distinctly before they were even born, and how they were against it and how they got away with pretending other by referring to what is recorded. And which we know they were involved with criminally foreign influence databases, just how employments, how forced roles with the economy from nowhere, from all these colonies themselves, crazy and factory nature, enslaved, hurting. That means you're hurting each other when you're leaving out makeup. In other words, and you're pretending other for the breaching method as you knew it would. So the agencies have roles with locations next to the news locations. And since they were kids, overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and the kids of the branch of the government and or the intelligence community, and the difference between that is consciously used. This method used our database relationships. It used the phenomenon of the difference between an array or a list, where they are distinctly, non-distinctly, simultaneously the same thing. For example, we're in how reason works. Reason uses exceptions. The exception nature is capable of using it, however, in ways hyper additional from what we are being allowed to appreciate because of uses of words criminally foreign influence, like evidence and like delusions. They're still fabricating audio and video transcripts and getting away with it because of criminally foreign influence readings of statutes that allow the same bodies individually grouped in together, pretending to be against individuals of power, to, who are involved with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes that are left criminally foreign influence, self-value, being used remotely, pretending other. CNN has roles reporting on this. They have roles with the intelligence community, including former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organization Act, involved with various natures of organized crime bodies and child offenders and elderly offenders, and uses of the difference between that. Also with people on off the state corrections offices and on off the state judicial branch offices through time, decades leading up to the World Trade Center attack, in that context and since, and with the names involved with predicate acts with the Wethersfield police and with Connecticut courts, with New Britain Superior Court, with forging names and switching names. Also with an officer, Jerry Miller, with names he recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also involved with passion crimes with New Britain Superior Court, Hartford courts, because I didn't know at the time. I only knew about the courts had been involved with people from Wethersfield, and the people who confessed this to me, they didn't know that. They knew other ways. The location /S were being used criminally foreign influence. West Hartford locations and ones next to them. For example, we are involved with people on off Central Connecticut State University with the intelligence community since I was a kid. involved with foreign and domestic military, involved with mayors, their family members, and police departments' families, and medical families. At the same time, collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and uses of insidiousness people A through Z, also tied to timed collusions with news, attaching people to fake words and conversations and ties to others, and with child offenders, leaders of the kids involved with this, because they have been involved with the interbranch intelligence community's kids. So they have more teachers with Rocky Hill and with West Hartford schools involved with this, with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with military police. Has a whole bunch of people tied to a Luigi Guerrera and a Paul Zano, who have been planting evidences with a Jonathan Maiano, with names on the street. And with the intelligence community, wire crimes with Wethersfield police, forging and switching names, falsified police reports through time, other natures of predicate acts, methods, and uses of them roles, and names involved, all these name stacking, people from other parts of town tied to the same now adults, but then they're bringing more kids involved. In other words, and their family members, adults since they were adults, involved in identity theft, fraud, slanders, trying to film fake things to make people look like they have fake ties to other, fake natures and ties to others, and also to measure and maintain that no one's going to have the quality of fact treatment nature to care about what came first, because this is a method that keeps self-valued, criminally foreign influenced identities of logic. So that's why and how Hartford, Connecticut has sick people next to their campuses that are involved with the people next to the campuses in the suburbs, and they have self-valued roles with that, where everyone's forcing everyone to speak through others, and they're blaming it because of because of how the sides hurt each other. The sides hurt each other because the names have been assigned tactical ulterior from how nature assigned every individual body of the species body, and group difference /S. To discern what causes positive or negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures is a system is a system that we could ignore it, but it will continually demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Acts like criminal insidiousness natures. So these are natures that have been long self-valued, how locations, areas, and states have, quote, the right to lie, unquote, where James Comey is one of the names recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by Congress, where and how they have predicate acts with the executive branch, grouped and grouped with the judicial branch, and then simultaneously they have predicate acts methods there, and natures is actually recorded. So forgiveness is to not let them keep calling people delusions from backgrounds and or changing what we say. They go back and forth with evidences, leaving out what came first, forcing quality of fact treatment. Like they're reporting that, and it's recorded, that judges pretend that the witnesses are being intimidated because they already have standards with their precedents and statutes already read, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought as the breaching method knew that was used remotely with them pretending other. There are motivations for roles with them with collusions at crime scenes because of the roles with predicate acts with facts methods, and everyone's speaking through other and involved with this because others communicated. So in other words, I don't want to use people's names from my town at all. I tried very hard. I'm not going to warn people. People got involved from other classrooms because they sensed when people are going to communicate about American history properly. You're going to use correlation by the same experts who are pretending to get people to be organized and stuff like that. It's an abridged nature of organization. They're involved with identity theft, frauds, and slanders at intercampuses of all ages and natures, Medical campuses have mental health communities and psychiatry involved with them, also as ones with police forms, and they're acting professors, and they're demonstrating their roles with unmarked police forms and pretending to be for their safety, as collusion is what makes and keeps them unsafe. How about the little girls from New York City? How they're going to walk out of that building? How about their safety? How about their safety? The reason they don't have safety because not one real person with science. You guys want to have nature debate, tactically, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions wrong. Follow mandated law. It says other than the experts on it want to say. So Connecticut interbranch has rules forging and switching names, remote uses of the sense and sensibilities of Judge Napolitano as one of the federal judges, retired and standing, involved with worse than war crimes with the names at the World Trade Center, too. There are increasingly names involved with the World Trade Center, and then they pretend we're bringing up a victim's name. They have people they have Sandy Hook victims and people with the Sandy Hook promise involved with Twitter, with the FBI and other agencies and military, foreign and domestic. They're not legitimately pretending to use the right to lie to hide things. They're confessing that, so they're showing uses of location. See, but this breaching method knew they would do that. There were a whole bunch of people with the intelligence community at Central Connecticut State University that took and takes pictures of people next to other kids next to each other, so they could pretend those people had communication. And this is also where and how the breaching method uses confessions distinctly from the church and distinctly from, nature and other people that use confessions like the interbranch. But it also has the difference of that it shows them how to use that together to hide their roles with itself. And that's how it has to do with this. So I don't know that Danielle Perrone and her boyfriends involved with the intelligence community, with Department of Transportation, and a whole bunch of people on off Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University have roles with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic, as times collusion with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and conscious uses of the logic of A through Z in our faces simultaneously, overtly / insidiously, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions raw. So there's a problem between them having gotten away with lewd tactics like pretending they care for unmarked police when they have little kids, little girls in those apartments in cities where and how the suburbs were designed for the torture and extortion of our founders. And thank God it's hyper evidential where who denies that they're going to have inherent active progressive to the logic demonstrations of it. Because this breaching method showed them how even preemptively to stack things to help them get away later. There are people from my grammar school I had nothing to do with who are putting fake things in databases, and they make fake exceptions that are a demonstration of the same thing. They did that to make it look like they're doing little magic tricks with syntax, where they have the kids of the interbranch and overt criminal enterprise at the same time. It's way worse. The only reason but if we just admit it, it reveals means out of nowhere. See, this breaching method knew that it made identities a law that would need to blame other things other than ourselves. And then hide how they do that with logic, pretending that they're, in other words. And, once you start leaving out details, blaming other things other than yourselves, things that the breaching method caused, it measures and maintains them. So there's an identity theft, fraud, slander. There's a Ray Reynolds that people from that men and women have been using for identity theft, fraud, slanders. Take a picture of me next to him and then lie about what was actually communicated when we did communicate. Has something to do. A whole bunch of people tied to Central Connecticut State University have been planting evidences on campuses of all ages and natures. It's also people on the campus of the medical campuses, like Hartford Hospitals, and they have an Institute of Living that was founded on the hospital on the campus of Hartford Hospital in 1822, with what and relative to where and to how slavery was still entrenched. And our founders communicated for us to understand where and how they didn't have the strength to counter that, and or to defend themselves from the fact, human nature, tortures, extortions, and slavery of themselves, and having to pretend others simultaneously, because that's also what the law is for us. That's also what the method/S for us. So once you entertain that, it's still, like, in other words, that's extortion and torture of the girls of New York City, sickly distinctly from the little boys, from the men and women, let alone the little boys and girls. And see, the men and women had this sustained since they were little boys and girls, that other things, others or ourselves blame. Oh, but we need recruiting. That's why you don't have recruiting. That's why you don't have a thing. Don't hide behind the excuses. Of course you don't have Marines. What do you even need them for? You can. There's an old saying. There's an ancient saying. You could rule by the back of a horse, but you can't rule. In other words, all you guys do, you guys are all fake. The Connecticut intelligence community recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have roles with the locations and names next to the news. And news, WFSB attached me to fake conversations with Roger Suzanne and others they have involved, also with wire crimes with their phones, and with the principal child defender, Forrest. There were more interbranch family members. The police chief Centron is also on off their location and ones next to it as one of the ones involved. Also with murders through time and cases involved where they keep other things, others themselves, blamed for, they have remote uses of this sick things. That's predicate acts with facts. Put those kids in jail after you ignore and pretend to be able to speak for logic and maturity and science and honesty. Honesty never spoke for New York City. Honesty never spoke for the suburbs the way they had need to be spoken for to explain the torture and extortion of our founders, let alone the cities. That was used to measure and maintain, too, by the breaching method effectively. So suits and ties, counters, and exceptions. We'll get right to them like this. That, in other words. So please, I forgot. I had written this to Hamas and the countries involved and our own. You guys are collusions. Forgiveness is not to give up for everyone hurting each other, but forgiveness is not to leave out what's using it. And it's where we are. Fact, human nature, is quality. The beginning of the Quran says, only right here is the only important thing people need to know. Beginning of the Old Testament says, only this part where the people of the sciences are going to come together is the only part anyone needs to know. Rather than deal with that, people don't even know that. They're using the most knowledge of the Quran, the most knowledge of the Old Testament. Oh, but this is what the Quran says about this. In other words, kill. The Quran says, only have to agree to call the identity of the hyper-simultaneous for transliteration. Allah. Plus for nature. Nature shows us there is a distinct identity of simultaneous nature that revealed why and how the species body /S, the other species too, and Earth, it invented that. It revealed this. It is a system better than perfect, only increasing value. It is an identity of forever nature, distinct from, but also non-distinct as the volume science /S of infinity, as infinity nature. Your identity is an infinity nature, but even while it is an infinity nature, it is by and as what is greater than that, more finite than that, and not as it, but as it anyway, as an active conjunction, as three identities of possession over the smallest finite part of any body, over all grouped. It's three identities of hyperpossession, 1/3/5 simultaneously over every group difference. This is how we could discern hyper invisible but still discernible. This is why, again, how and why there are 5 names for a verb: verb, present participle, past participle, a predicate, a gerund, and a predicate. And this is why and how infinitive is about exceptions in exception nature, how it is being used the same way there as that, as what is that, even when the one is not being used, even in the verb is manifest this way. All parts of English, all parts of the ancient languages, see the history of the languages, it measured and maintained. The experts on it needed to blame other things other than themselves because all the other experts assigned for the misattribution, criminal reengineerings of it, pretended other, or pretended for other causes, or with truths used to appearing to be counter that or addressing that, but really in collusions with that. A singular breaching method itself is hyper invisible, but it is still discernible. Where and how the suits and ties, the counters to it, and the exceptions of it have their foundations in that which was interstates, rolls with crazy laws, and that for torture, extortion, and fact treatment, nature, slavery of everyone, and sustained, where and how it also assigned our naturally why and how we are additionally voicing for and as Earth and as other species, but anyway. Any prey. So in other words, there has been torture and extortion and fact treatment, nature of slavery of Palestinians. That is inseparable from and as the same method that has been entrenched in our modern country since before there were. This was sustained against Native Americans and was still being sustained against them in such a way to make them fight with each other or ally with each other as uses of names, of nature and of the sciences, names in nature, tactical, while it's countering. Because in other words, it stole everyone's quality of fact treatment nature. It's forcing us to ignore that with subject treatment. This is inseparable from all subject treatment. And so what they do is they prevent people short words. Like, please get the interbranch onto paper, one name in sequence. They switch names, forge names. They have wire crime action methods. They have collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of people A through Z, also as because of timed collusions with news predicate acts, also because of criminal foreign influence uses of the location /S. And this is all database locations and the difference between that and the ones at the campuses of all ages and natures, and the differences between, this is a public school, or this is that. They connect it. They connect fake motivations for people with their descriptions of names, with their descriptions of their motivations when they use other people's names. The FBI director and other agencies and their kids. They have roles with uses of corners of buildings and of streets with the overt criminal enterprises and unions. Because there's insidiousness also of the branches of government, used, measured, and maintained self-valued uses of themselves, criminal insidious natures of positive and or negative treatments. Because simultaneously, whenever there is a positive or negative treatment, there is an identity treatment. So one of the things that was sickly distinctly against our founders and from everyone else and from ourselves now is an identity theft, fraud, slander method, equally against everyone. It is manifest that way. and it is a fact nature oriented hyperpossession. That is hyperpossession / S. The hyperpossession is by the breaching method and self-valued roles with it, though, which is where the motivations are important, because that's where the evil, under the guise of good, has to be countered simultaneously, because there are collusions with criminal and seditious natures of positive treatments and negative treatments where we are syntax nature, where they are making and having made convictions, and where they make theories too, tactically delusions raw, criminally foreign influence uses of words like theory with sciences. So they have the religions read criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. They get away with this by fabricating conversations with kids and their family members about religion, because they have the religious spots, the sense and sensibilities. No one's going to go into everyone just, oh, that person's law, that person's FBI. So they respect people blindly. The FBI has roles with wire crime acts and methods, fabricating transcripts with Wethersfield police and with state police, forensics locations. All identities of law had roles with predicate acts, with facts way worse than they put little kids and adults in jail for. In the jails too, when they're not involved with the crime scene still, the jails are differentially criminally foreign influence too, since they were kids with their family members and involved foreign and domestic medical, military, criminally foreign influence databases, all the electric, all the people involved with the programming, with that, everything. People want to defend themselves and their identities of jobs dishonestly, getting involved with other people's conversations and dishonestly, whether as collusions. And they people want to have describe things. People shut up when they use short words properly, or lie about their substance. And they get away with this because of the crime methods, predicate acts methods that courts have and never stopped having. These are Hartford courts, New Britain Superior Court, and Connecticut District Court, I found out after, is involved with the same names, planting evidences at crime scenes and next to them, because of the uses remotely of investigators, and of campuses, and or of the difference of that in the crime scene. It has something to do with how they have roles with different countries and cultures, and takes on this, and on maturity, and on manners. So our intelligence community has no manners, and they need to pretend other simultaneously. That's one of the reasons they would self-value, pretending not to realize really what is the value of the suburbs, let alone the cities. The cities were designed overtly / insidiously three ways overall. A bunch of ways: criminally foreign influence, for torture, for extortion of fact-cheating nature, by a method that made people pretend other anyway, because it also employed those quality of fact-cheating natures as collusions with what, if you defend that, you can't counter what has involvements with everyone's conversations, not just with the known other names involved with little kids and listening to little kids' conversations. They're changing that too, and they're hiding all that's involved with it, how they communicate other than they pretended. Where they don't realize too is because they're tactically delusions raw. So in other words, I'll teach you guys about delusions. I'm not even a doctor. We could use the doctor's delusions also as hyper evidential, and their roles with federal evidence as crimes, with seating of juries. The people that seat the juries are involved planting evidences. The uses of the location's names never stopped being A through Z, used criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, per this method, replacing at the youngest ages what's actually capable of being correlated. There was a sting breaching method against Native Americans. You know, they have people in because they can't have them all doing it in classrooms because they'll get called out by someone. So they'll make those people who would know that, they'll have other classrooms. They have other classrooms with different material and timing of it, which is involved with where and how the military, like there are people with the military with Newington locations. I don't know their names though. They know my name. They're involved with the Cololo family. And one's with Weathersfield Police, wire crimes, and a whole bunch of people with the name, with Hartford Hospital involved with military with the name Lombardo, and on Elm Streets in Weathersfield and Rocky Hill, who have involvements with a whole bunch of doctors, foreign and domestic, and nurses and their extended family members, the extended family members of a Kuwaiti general, and involved with deans and prosecutors. I mean, deans and their family members, prosecutors, their family members, judges, their family members, roles of predicate acts with fax methods, wire crime methods, roles, uses of corners of buildings in those streets for identity theft, fraud, slander, where and how that's relative, because that's one of the things non-distinctly we're gonna self-value, where and how we can counter, where and how we all agree that we want counter. We're at countries A through Z. We are non-distinctly victims by a predicate X method. That the only reason we don't counter it is because it's keeping everyone blaming other things other than themselves. What it cause and keeps, even when they're using truths for that. So it is one can't ignore how Palestine is manifest and afford communicated properly why our founders communicated to understand how the suburbs were designed before they were born for torture method, a slavery method that tactically denatured the Earth's identity relationship to itself too, to cause negative value nature progressions, acts and natures, and where and how it knew that nature would demonstrate there's a breaching method as a scientific value to human reason. Instead, it made needs and natures to blame other things other than themselves, besides the breaching method, per a method of use of those demonstrations. So, under the guise of the science of psychiatry and of human health in the body and its system /S, we have had worse than what they, the worst roles with Germany and with the world wars. Germany and the religious interreligious cliques that have been criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought together, uses of those assignments of the names of the human species body, tactically ulterior from the one that needs us to appreciate how it uses difference all the ways we know, but then hyper additionally at the same time. It is the value. It is the identity of value / value progression that is still increasingly valued. That what came first before the smallest finite detail of each modern country's foundation. This ancient republic for which we stand, America. We have not addressed how it has, how the summaries of it, the quote, experts on it, unquote. They have self-valued how it is overtly / insidiously, simultaneously, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw version of itself from ancient times, which were not this way. Many pray. It is increasingly more probable and more practical than what is posited by the ratiocination / pseudo ratiocination of humanity's voices They're getting away with it. They have the new Connecticut News. WFSB has something to do with the attacking bodies on the World Trade Center attack, as names that also at each campus I went to from the youngest ages. They have people involved planting evidences on campuses and uses of corners of buildings and of identity theft frauds and acting passions and emotions to pretend other. Quinnipiac University has a Kevin Harris, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with child offenders, with the medical community, and with the Leahy family, with a Rick C. and Faglione, also involved with wire crime acts and methods with the Wethersfield police, with this Ray Cololo and his neighbors, a Smith family. And they're recorded involved with people with gun threats and poison threats against me. And with the police forging and switching names, lying about their motivations with passion crimes with the principal child offender. And they have a Phil Cololo further involved with that. They've recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have a Joshua Julian also with people with the news through time and Whiting forensics with their patients and criminals, planting evidences with crime rolls with them before they were caught. And since has something to do with the Mayor Gold's family also with that, with people with Whiting forensics through time, with prosecutors and judges involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, speaking about serious things anyway. Follow mandated law for your branch of government, please, America. In every modern country, they should fear God. They spoke for psychiatry and pretended they could speak for other people's names. Fear God. They're blaming other things other than themselves. That's what they need. Other people to be doing that too. They have celebrities. They but I just said something. They're being used to hide what's being fake things in databases. They don't care if you say just get them. They're online. Get on paper and to one name in sequence. Connecticut interbranch and federal agencies and your family members. You guys brought it up. And the overt criminal enterprises, because there are foreign bodies. I'm not leaving them out. You're not going to hide behind them either or with them. The FBI with Connecticut involved with the child abusers and with other agencies and the foreign and domestic military, and with a whole bunch of something to do with their roles with the buildings next to the Capitol and conjunctions to the state Capitol, are people that have been planting evidences and identity thefts and frauds, timed collusions, also with names next to the campuses, also with the news, as roles with uses the corners of that. They have more placements in the campuses involved with predicate acts with the kids. And through time, as people involved with it through time, where and how too, they affect confessions from people. Timed at corners of buildings and things like that, and where they have exceptions employed. So, in other words, a Joe Aiello and a John Maiano have roles with sequence shifts with courts and prosecutors and foreign and domestic intelligence community on off the Central Connecticut State University and the sides of it with names, and on off Trinity College and the sides of it, as roles with names on the sides of the campuses, intercities and suburbs. I mean, suburbs, the same thing. So we have difference /S used by the breaching method to measure and maintain how it employed that only allowed. And that was sustained. And then our founders were born. And don't forget, that was sustained after before that it had been sustained, and then it was sustained again a new way after it had already made the Native Americans start to have to fight with each other syntactically, not wanting to fight with each other. Had to make them ignore those fights syntactically to stay unity. It made everyone, in other words, everyone has to counter and overcome where and how. Also, the value of where and how we are factual nature is only increasing. See, but we're ignoring the way that it's only increasing to make it positive. Not positive as criminal and citizen's nature, which is an identity of negative relationship to itself. And so it forces lease of Hadith for space nature transfer, as it means we can help to discern where and how it helps us discern answers. It will solve all our answers. But we need a quality of fact-keeping nature that the people that are speaking as experts are using the quote knowledge of good, or not quote, they're using the knowledge of good and evil to get over on correlation nature. They're using how they know the most about George Washington and James Madison to measure and maintain that. Not addressed is how they didn't have free speech. If someone addresses it with short words, they're going to hurt that person or self-value that person hurt by others, which is also gotten away with because everyone's forced to an extent to leave out the communications, the group communications forced to be entertained, where and how they plant evidence is increasingly at location. That's one of the things. There are things non-distinctly. It's the same way manifest now as they were before our founders were born, because the breaching method has them manifest, where and how we are syntactically manifest. So our countries have no security and stability because they came into market's position. They came into speaking about value, speaking about identity, still criminally foreign influence, and not realizing, but also pretending other, also valuing having been blamed on other things other than yourselves. In other words, there are answers. Everything there are answers that are very easy, and where it is complex, it is tactical ulterior from where and how we have what is easy and what is complex described, because they're getting over on the simultaneous nature / hyper simultaneous nature. English was revealed to teach this. Modern countries don't remember the history of their languages because of the roles of criminal foreign influences and uses of criminal foreign influences at all locations / s. And then further with the database relationships. And this is a method that also uses the difference of that, where it employed other things other than ourselves to be blamed. Now it maintains that self-cultivated. So roles with the January 6th attack are recorded involved with the House of Representatives and with the Senate, distinctly used individually grouped too, where they have group predicate acts methods with the court's names. We have group predicate acts methods with the police forms. Like Wethersfield Police has been putting fake conversations with little kids and with their family members into the databases through time. I never had conversations with these Wethersfield Police at their police department, and they're pretending other. They use I had someone else speak for me when I went to Wethersfield Police. They put me in quotes there. Get them on paper, because these are the ones involved with this Phil Collola, further involved with child offenders of mixed nature, sexual, medical, and judicial. And I thank that father, Bob Chase, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed this as Whiting Forensics, and the courts involved with this. People with Hartford Superior Court and New Britain Superior Court, they have their family members and people with the hallways of their courts involved, and judges forging and switching names, prosecutors and their family members too, with that same house involved with predicate acts with them. So get them on paper with Judge Napolitano, please. Follow mandated law. Get the Wethersfield Police on paper, one name and sequence. They've been fabricating wire crimes too, and their roles with the intelligence community on and off the news locations. They've been roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders with. They have CNN has roles with them with readings of statutes. Some of the statutes. They have readings of statutes that are criminally foreign influence. Also has collusions with the names at those courts, because of what is also on off the state judicial branch offices through time, and the conjunctions to it, and how they keep the family members and kids of overt criminal enterprises and private ones at the same time, needing to hide life progressions with the interbranch, needing to hide identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake exceptions of people knowing each other. The middle school I went to had a whole bunch of people that hung around with each other. And where they didn't hang around with each other, they're lying about both of that. Why? They're just doing whatever to make people look like they were attached. with ties in nature and ties to others, where they have delusions, where they use math, where they use algebra, where they all investigators, and identities of logic experts are still criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw black pupils. Here, get them on paper, one name and sequence. Serious things are in the news that they had collusions with. We have the answers. Fix the World Trade Center predicate acts, and the one since with the Connecticut interbranch and news at the same time to prevent voices. Criminally foreign influence readings of statutes. Let them do it on paper. I'll show you. Get them on paper, one name and sequence. They switch names too. They have rules with switching names. The police form switching, planting evidence on my house. And then intercities, they did this with the same ones involved. And they have rules with home break-ins relative and uses of that as the names involved with the World Trade Center attack. They used the extended family members of Kuwaitis, uses of the insidiousness at religious locations too, and of the method of pretending people are being mean about religion. Get out of my conversation, then, punk. Get them on paper. Watch the sick people use the locations that way, just to force fake their motive. We're supposed to, get on paper. That's the conversation. They want to have people say things so they can just they're faking and replacing what's actually recorded too. The intelligence community has judges and prosecutors, their family members replacing what's recorded on Facebook. They have roles with child sex offenders and medical offenders as doctors. There's a Judge Killian and our doctors involved with child sex offenders on off campuses and with the news and with their doctors and with drugs and medicine times with the kids, some untimely deaths. And they're putting fake things in records. Judge Napolitano, we need you to have integrity and response to mandated law when someone reports things. You want to disagree with me? Get on paper. Get them on paper. Follow mandated law, Wethersfield Police. Let's go. Pick one name and sequence. They got intelligence community with the campuses planting fake things and spreading rumors tied to it at the same time, and with the news. Rock Hill campuses have people involved with this, with the intelligence community near me too. Then they're making us use their names because they were preventing us from getting theirs. That's how they have people going into criminal and civil cases where they have collusions, the courts. So get them on paper in one name and sequence now. They should fake branches. Stand down. Stand down. Get in because they're gonna fall. Bow and stand down. Bow and fall. In other words, it's time. The wall, vaccines. So through administration, since before the Obama administration, since I was a little kid, since before I was born, Central Connecticut State University has roles with names at Wethersfield campuses. I found out how it's intercities. They have names next to the campuses too, because it's been manifest so long, roles with predicate acts at campuses. Fake science. Hartford, Connecticut. We have some KKK-themed, black-themed military police. And interbranch assignments, also their sexual differences and the locations associated with them, where and how that's also used remotely, criminally foreign influence leading up to the World Trade Center attack and since. Please give me a response. Wethersfield Pizza has roles with this, with the FBI and other agencies and people on off the state judicial branch offices, with intercultural and intracultural, roles with that breaching methods, uses of that fake and pretending other identity theft, fraud, slanders. Fake ties to kids on campuses is being pretended into databases as collusions with crime scenes. Increasingly, even the news has. Follow mandated law for them. I didn't make any theories too, no. That's one of the things these countries fighting with each other do. They pretend people make conspiracy theories. They have psychiatry. They have tactical delusions relative to readings of books. You can't appreciate trying to make everything that's simple complicated too, because they need the experts to defend their identity uses. Follow mandated law for them, please. Anyone who disbelieves. Let's get the interbranch. Who knows an interbranch name of Connecticut? or of New York. And if they say they disbelieve, get them on paper. Get them on paper. Tell me their names. Watch their sequence treatments and value treatments or not. Get them on paper. I'll show you how I got right down to fix all the wars and everything. Watch.